What is fantasy football without Tom Brady? Someday we might find out. Today is not the day. Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, a bonus podcast. Tom Brady is back. At first, I was kind of, almost annoyed. And then I thought about it for 5 seconds. And this is great. Welcome back. Never leave. We love Tom Brady. Also, Amari Cooper is on the Browns. Michael Gallup, 5-year deal, $62.5 million with the Cowboys. And Zach Ertz, re-signed by the Arizona Cardinals. Zach Ertz was a top 5 tight end in full PPR, and a lot of catches, a lot of targets. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Adam Azer, Jamie Eisberg, Dave Richard, and Chris Towers here for this bonus pod. And we're going to have Deshaun Watson news soon, too. It's going to be a fun week, so make sure you tune in. And make sure you join our bracket challenge. I'll have a link for you, by the way, in the episode description, but cbssports.com/FFT brackets. Now, the people want to hear about Tom Brady, so we'll start with that. Dave, rank him.
I put him at 8. I put him ahead of Russell Wilson, behind Dak Prescott. That's obviously got room to change when we learn more about what the Cowboys do. But I'm assuming that Gronk's going to re-sign, that Godwin's going to heal up, that they find a third receiver, that the offensive line pretty much stays the same. They're running it back. And I think that Brady has proven, especially after last year, top 2 in fantasy points per game and 6-point passing touchdown leagues, top 4 in consistency. Don't see any reason in the world why he's going to start to slow down now. And the other thing that's happening here is that I feel like his return is kind of devaluing the quarterback position a little bit on draft day, because now there are so many quarterbacks. You could run through 12 quarterbacks and still not get to any of the breakout guys, still not get to Jalen Hurts, have enough for everybody in your league to have a starter. I think now more than ever, this is the time where you do not want to reach for a quarterback, because you will find one of the great ones hanging around later.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson, too, if he's back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's going to be a very deep position. Okay, you have him 8th. Jamie, how about you?
He'll be 6 for me. You just know what he's capable of with this offense. I'm sure looking at, Godwin's return, I'm sure Gronk will be back. I'm sure that they will find something to fill that third spot to replace Antonio Brown, but they don't really need that. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the running back position, because that's obviously a big hole. Fournette is gone, based on the reports from Greg Auman, who is as plugged into this team as anybody. So, if Fournette does leave, that's a big spot to fill. But this division stinks. Who knows what the Saints, who have tormented him, are going to look like, without their head coach there. But, Dennis Allen's still there. But in any event, Bruce Arians is tried and true. Brady's tried and true. It's as sure thing as you can possibly get for a guy who's going to be 105 and still producing at this level.
45, 105, whatever it is. Chris, okay, how about you? We got an 8, we got a 6. Where are you at on Tom Brady?
5. I've got him basically right at the top of the third tier, after Allen and Mahomes in tier 1, Jackson and Herbert in tier 2. And then it's Brady, Rodgers, Murray, Stafford, all those guys in that range. So I think, you can put him at the top of the tier if you want to have Aaron Rodgers ahead of him, or Dak Prescott or someone like that. I think that makes sense. But yeah, he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. They're going to throw a ton. There's no reason to think they won't. It's going to be one of the best offenses for fantasy again.
Yeah, 8, 6, maybe you can even say 5. People could say it's a little bit low for a guy who's number 2. And I know that with basically the last 7 games of the 2020 season, except for week 17 when Mike Evans left, he was 3rd per game when they started playing with Antonio Brown. Although I think I didn't count this first game in that stretch where he was terrible. But he started playing at an elite level, because remember the first half of his first season in Tampa Bay wasn't great. Second half he was incredible. Then they had the Super Bowl.
Couldn't play at night.
Couldn't play at night. Yeah, he wasn't
down. It was rough.
But yeah, I guess my question would be, why not 3rd? Why? And how could you rank Aaron Rodgers ahead of him?
That's the one I struggle with, honestly, and he may come out 5 for me as well, because I have Rodgers 5th right now, and so it's between Rodgers and Brady. The guys I have in front of him, it's easy to say Allen, Mahomes. And then the next 2, you can certainly debate it with Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson, but you have to be a little bit concerned, if, we were talking before the show started, when does Godwin come back, if there is a little bit of a lull or a delay in terms of his, recovery? Who's going to be the third receiver? Is Gronk definitely back? Is there going to be a running back replacement that's going to, help in the passing game as well? But, he's as safe a bet as you can find in this offense. As Chris said, it's a great offense for fantasy. The weapons are, for the most part, back if Gronk returns. And so there's little reason to doubt him if the offensive line comes back in as much as it's capable of being back, based on what their salary cap ramifications are.
I mean, there is one thing. He's 45.
We've
never.
That's your thing.
It's indestructible.
Well, that's
never,
the thing is that
I
he was 44 last year.
I know. And listen, I'm not. I am loving that you guys are saying that you want to take Tom Brady 5th and Tom Brady 6th, and he might
not take
ADP.
Rank, not take. I'll let everybody else take
Hold
him.
on a second. You're going to rank him 5th, but you wouldn't make him your 5th.
Oh, I'm never taking a quarterback early. I mean, because I ranked Josh Allen first, I have to take him first. No, I'm going to wait on quarterback.
Well, that's what I'm doing too. That's the whole point of this. Is that I think it's
the whole point
really
of it is to tell people where they should be selecting them. The whole point is not where I'm drafting him.
Okay, so all right. So that's a better question then. What round are you willing to take Tom Brady in?
What round am I willing to take a quarterback in? Is not round when I'm willing to take Brady in, because if I'm willing to take
What's the
Brady
answer?
And I get him late, I'm going to take him late, but I'm not going to reach for a quarterback because I never do.
What round?
I know.
9, 10, 11?
Right.
Oh, Brady's going to go probably in round 4 or 5. I mean,
right. Which I'm not. I don't want to
to
be any part of that.
Well, I don't know.
But if he finishes as 1 or 2, which he's capable of, as he showed you last year, then you regret not taking him.
Yeah, I think if you go back to last year, right, we had Mahomes. I don't remember exactly what ADP was, but Mahomes was like round 2, Allen early round 3, and then you had this group of quarterbacks: Kyler, Dak, Lamar Jackson. Who am I forgetting? I don't know that Brady was there. Like Brady and Herbert probably just after.
Brady was more like 100, like 80 to 100 overall, I want to say, especially in the draft we were doing. I think the way I look at it is like there are probably 3 quarterbacks who I think have a realistic chance of averaging 30 points per game, and that's Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. We've basically seen all 3 of those guys do it before. I don't really think anyone else does. I think Kyler probably could because of his rushing ability, but that's probably it. Like for Brady to do it, you're probably talking about a 50-plus touchdown season and another 5,000 yards, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, but it's asking an awful lot. And so I think the way you probably want to look at it is like last year, Brady averaged 26.9 PPR points or points in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues. And he was about 3 points per game ahead of Jalen Hurts and Aaron Rodgers. So that's, at least if I'm looking at the right numbers. And so, that's where it's like there's that big second/third tier quarterback. I think that's where he fits in. And so I think what we're probably all saying is like you'd rather pick from the back end of that group and maybe sacrifice 2 fantasy points per game in order to get better value.
Yeah. Right. Last year, people didn't buy it yet, right? People didn't see Brady as that. They weren't quite there. This year, they will be because he just went out and had this incredible season. But anyway, we like him. He's going to be anywhere from 5th to 8th in the rankings for these 3 guys. Let's talk about Amari Cooper. And by the way, we're going to have an episode Monday afternoon. Usually we record at 10 a.m. We're not going to do that. We're going to wait for the news to develop. So we're tentatively at 3 p.m. on Monday with the same thing Tuesday and Wednesday as of now. It's kind of a fluid schedule. So make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. And just be ready for a lot of episodes this week. And we're going to recap the day's events, and hopefully there'll be some really interesting stuff. There will be. I don't have to say hopefully. All right, let's talk about Amari Cooper here going to the Cleveland Browns, who actually, believe it or not, in Baker Mayfield's first season had 2,000-yard receivers. I had forgotten about that. Both Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham went over 1,000 yards. That was 3 seasons ago. But Amari Cooper is going to a much, much different offense than the team that led the league in scoring, second in pass attempts. Kellen Moore is always throwing the ball. So anyway, Chris, I'll give you the first word. Give me a round you think that Amari Cooper will go in as of right now. Things are going to change a lot, I know, but as of right now, and a round you think Amari Cooper should go in a 12-team PPR league.
I want to say round 5 or 6 for both. I think is probably where he's going to end up. I don't think there's going to be much optimism surrounding him because I think a lot of people view him as a pretty frustrating player for, not without good reason. He's been very inconsistent throughout his career. He's coming off a down season, and he's playing with a guy in Baker Mayfield who, rightly or wrongly, has a perception as being kind of a wide receiver killer. And so I don't think there's going to be very much excitement around him. I think it could be more like round 6. I don't think anybody's going to push him. Maybe even I think he'll low end wide receiver 2 probably is the high end of the range where he'll go.
Is anybody excited about this?
Nope.
I'm not.
Baker Mayfield.
it's not the worst thing if he's just a total target hog there.
Which is what you have to hope for.
It's a run-first offense. It's a tight end-friendly offense. Bringing back Njoku, I think, kind of tells you that they're still going to kind of keep a similar direction that they have been. Kevin Stefanski's offense really hasn't changed much, so Beckham flopped going to Cleveland for the most part. He certainly had some moments, and who knows if he had stayed healthy, which is, much more of a problem for him than it's been for Cooper. Cooper's an amazing talent, and I don't think gets the credit he deserves. You saw all the comments, or at least if you paid attention, saw the comments. Almost every receiver around the NFL was like, that's all this guy was worth. For a guy that's amazing route runner and player and the production that he's put up. But it's more about Baker. It's more about Stefanski. It's more about the division that he's in now as well. So I don't have him as a starter. He's a number 3 receiver for me. He's barely in my top 30, so if somebody wants to take him in round 5, go ahead.
Okay. How about,
you mentioned like a target hog. Jarvis Landry had a 26% target share last season. And obviously, I think we think Amari Cooper's much better than Jarvis Landry, who will do more with those targets. But, that was still right around 7 targets per game. So even if, they're going to have to throw more in order for Amari Cooper to be even in the 125 target range like that.
Yep.
Jarvis Landry wasn't close to the pace for that on a 26% target share.
You have to hope.
He had 130. So they had 2 guys in 2019 that had 130 targets in Landry and Beckham. That is and they had almost every target. Nobody else had more than 50.
So it's possible that Cooper could. I think that's what you have to hope for if you settle on Amari Cooper on draft day. You have to hope that. I think you have to hope for he plays in the slot like exclusively, and he does a lot of what Jarvis Landry did. I shouldn't say exclusively. I should say like 60% of the time, and he just soaks up targets and he comes through. And the ceiling for a guy like that in Cleveland, it's 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, maybe.
And that wasn't Stefanski in 2019,
right? I mean, it's right. So like in 2019, when Baker did what he did, no Stefanski. Last 2 years, the receivers haven't put up huge numbers. No receivers had more than 6 touchdowns in a season. From Baker Mayfield, and very few have had over 1,000.
Who was the last one? I actually have this. That the last time a Cleveland player had more than 6 receiving touchdowns.
I don't even.
Is it Josh Gordon?
That's what I thought. Is a little bit sooner than that. It was a fantasy one-hit wonder, and
Brian
it was not a wide receiver.
Jordan Cameron.
Gary
Cameron
Barnidge.
Yeah,
Gary Barnidge.
2015, 9 touchdown catches. The last time a Cleveland Brown had more than 6 touchdown catches. All right, you guys want to talk about Michael Gallup? Can I take Michael? Let's say Michael Gallup's healthy for week 1. Can I take him over Amari Cooper?
You might be smart in doing so, but I don't think anybody's going to do that. Look, Gallup's in a good spot, and the production might be similar. So you probably just wait that out and you take Gallup. But, clearly the Cowboys told you what they think. Contract matters, but the fact that they let him walk or essentially leave for such minimal return, again, somebody had to take Cooper's contract, so factor that in. But, getting back such minimal compensation and then turning around and signing Gallup, who's coming off of an ACL tear, they obviously feel pretty good about that situation that they have there. So if you tell me that I can get Gallup 2 or 3 rounds later, I'll take Gallup 2 or 3 rounds later. And it might be more than that.
I think people are going to have to figure out how they feel about ACL tears, right? With Godwin, with Gallup.
I think people are going to pay attention to the news with these guys leading up to the
Robert
draft.
Woods too.
Right. But at least Robert Woods didn't tear his ACL around
in
or
December.
after Christmas. Right.
Yeah. Well, anybody have strong takes on Michael Gallup? I do think people are going to be kind of down on him, but there's obviously huge opportunity here for a team that throws as much as just about any team in football.
So that's the weird thing, though, is they do throw the ball a ton, but they spread it around a ton too. Amari Cooper is leaving a 19% target share behind, so it's not like he had this huge role. CeeDee Lamb had a 21% target share to lead the team, and Michael Gallup was at 17%. So he was on a 850-yard pace. I think you could see a scenario where he's really good in the red zone and has close to 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns and is like a useful wide receiver 3 with weekly upside. But I don't think he's someone that I'm going to be targeting as a starter.
And that's if he plays 17 games. Yeah,
Right, which is probably unlikely.
Listen, he could even play. He might be able to get that in 15 games. Just the nature of the Dallas offense, the role that he could have as an outside.
I mean, think about that Week 1 game last year.
Exactly,
7 targets in the first half.
Right. So like he was well on his way. So he could absolutely do that for them. But if he's not ready to go and he starts the year on the PUP list, then I don't have a problem with someone taking him back half of the draft. You're going to take him. You're immediately going to stash him after the draft, and you're going to go hit your waiver wire to take somebody else. But I do have a problem with people who don't have those PUP IR spots spending anything before round 10 on Michael Gallup at this point. So it's a late pick, and if you got to sit on him for 6 weeks plus, I don't like doing that. I think you can find a player that will have a chance to break out before then. And then people listen, hopefully he's fine and he's good to go and doesn't do what Michael Thomas just did to us a year ago.
It's a great offense. I just don't know how great of a fantasy offense it is. The last 3 seasons, we've had one good season from Gallup, a good season from Lamb last year. Cooper was
one of those was without.
Yeah, I don't count 2020.
Sure.
Yeah.
But even then, they were on pace for like 700 pass attempts. But even then, the way they spread the ball around, it's really hard for one guy to get. I mean, I don't think anybody's had more than 130 targets in the past in the Kellen Moore era.
Let me give you one stat, and this isn't necessarily about Gallup, but let me tell you when I can find it. Okay, in Amari Cooper's first 29 games with the Cowboys before Prescott got hurt in 2020. Okay, so that was the end of the second half of 2018, all of 2019, and the first 4 games of 2020. He was on pace for 144 targets in 17 games, 1,357 yards, 9 touchdowns, 99 catches, basically the best stretch of his career. So I think what you could take from that is it wasn't as nearly as crowded of a receiving core as it was in 2021 when he had to compete with Lamb and Gallup for half the season, and Dalton Schultz emerging. So I think that was really the only time recently that we've seen one guy get featured. Amari Cooper was kind of an alpha receiver before the Prescott injury and before the emergence.
Well, I think they're thinking Lamb's that guy now.
I hope so. Yeah, but yes, I hope. I think that right. As I said, it's not necessarily relevant for Gallup, but it just was different than what we saw last year where they did spread the ball around. But okay, all right. So, I guess my last question on that is when you look at the contract, 5 years, $62.5 million for a guy who just tore his ACL. Maybe the Cowboys know something we don't. Do they? Jamie, do you think they're higher on Michael Gallup than fantasy might be, and maybe we need to pay attention to that? I mean, how do you?
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. The Cowboys kind of told you how they felt, that they took such little in return for Amari Cooper. Part of it was shipping the contract out the door, because finding a taker for that is not necessarily easy. But this receiver market might get nuts in the next 48 hours. With even who the guys are available. We're talking about Christian Kirk getting $15 million a year. Who knows what Allen Robinson's going to get? So. And then the dominoes will start to fall, because when you lose Devontae Adams, you lose Chris Godwin, the 2 top guys, and then Cooper becomes available. We'll see if Landry's market, whatever that is, if the Browns are going to shop him. So all these moves have domino effects. So Brady coming back, to tie that in is now going to set the market for what Deshaun Watson is probably going to command. If in fact team is going to go to what the potential return that the Texans are seeking, 3 first-round picks and a couple young players that are on their rookie deals. And now the Cooper trade is going to set the market as well for what this is. Gallup getting that deal, is going to change some things as well. So it's going to get a little nutty here. But I think, in terms of, just the Cowboys, they clearly prioritized 2 players over Amari Cooper, and that was Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup. Putting the tag on Schultz, we kind of saw this coming when we heard the Cooper, news or Cooper rumors, that they were going to try and get rid of him. And so Schultz is a huge winner in this, without a doubt. Lamb is a huge winner in this, without a doubt. But Michael Gallup's not somebody that you should sleep on by any stretch. And if he is ready come week 1, there is immense breakout potential.
All right, we're going to take a real quick break on fantasy football today. Wrap it up with some Zach Ertz talk after this. Welcome back to our bonus podcast here. Zach Ertz. Number 5 in full PPR, number 10 in non-PPR. With Arizona, played 11 games. He was number 7 in non-PPR and number 5 in full PPR. His 17-game pace in those 11 games was 56 catches. Nope, it was 87 catches. Sorry, 56 is what he actually had. 87 catches, 887 yards, 5 touchdowns on 125 targets. That was his 17-game pace in 11 games with the Cardinals. Not a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in that stretch.
Right.
All right, so Dave, what do you think about Ertz? Is he a top 12 tight end for you?
He is going to be a top 12 tight end for me. I don't have him re-ranked yet based on this news, but I figured that it was not a best case scenario for him to stay in Arizona. I think there were other spots he could have gone to where I think he could have done even better, but he'll be okay. Someone that you can target back half of drafts. When you need a tight end, you got to start a tight end. His target rate was 14% in the 2 games where DeAndre Hopkins played. Hopkins was at 23%. In 7 games without Hopkins, and with any Cardinals quarterback, doesn't matter whether it was Kyler or somebody else, he had a 22% target share. My guess is that he's going to be closer to 14% of the target share with Hopkins there, with another receiver coming there, and with Rondale Moore getting a step up in looks too. Still could be a good touchdown target at tight end, and I would expect him to contend for in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 touchdowns this year, but not somebody that I would prioritize on draft day. For example, Dalton Schultz, way ahead of him. Dallas Goedert, ahead of him. Rob Gronkowski, banking on him being back in Tampa Bay, way ahead of him.
He caught 3 touchdowns in 11 games with the Cardinals, and 2 of them were from Colt McCoy against Seattle with, again, no DeAndre Hopkins. I haven't taken a look at the green zone, red zone, end zone targets in that stretch, but that is something worth noting. Who is in the range of Zach Ertz, Jamie? Who are we comparing him to?
Oh, Dave mentioned it. I love this move for Zach Ertz. I love this move for the Cardinals because I do think, you look at what their opportunities are to, to acquire players, and they prioritized him last year. And I think, you heard some of this throughout the season that, bringing him back was important. And Ertz, said that there were some things he was looking for in free agency, continuity with a quarterback, climate, money, all these things kind of, I think, fell in place for him. So I think, Christian Kirk seems like he's out the door. Dave mentioned who's coming, in there. Clearly, that's something we have to wait and see. But if it's AJ Green and Rondale Moore, I think Zach Ertz is in a good spot. We don't know the health of DeAndre Hopkins. This is a guy that had, surgery that was supposed to potentially be back if they made the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. Where's his health at? And is he at the point in his career now where injuries are going to start to become a problem? Because it's the first time that he's actually had to miss significant time, but it's, he missed 2 separate times last season. So I think Ertz is a guy that Kyler can rely on and can make some plays for him. He's better in PPR than non-PPR. You mentioned the 3 touchdowns. So in PPR, he might be better than Gronk. Non-PPR, Gronk is probably going to be significantly better if he could stay healthy. But he's in that group. He's a top 10 tight end. It's just a matter of, I think what format you're looking at, half, full, and non-PPR. But I think, if you miss on the, top 5 guys, with Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, and Kittle, however you rank them, I think you put, probably, at least I'll speak for myself, I put Dalton Schultz and TJ Hawkinson next, Goddard in that group as well, and then he's in that next group with Gronk, filling out the top 10.
Okay. And Chris, anything to add?
I'd much rather have Gronk if he's back. I think he's more in the Noah Fant, Alberto, Mike Gesicki, Cole Kmet kind of range where he's probably a little safer than any of those guys, but I don't think there's going to be very much about Zach Ertz that's exciting. You're kind of hoping for 5 catches and 45 yards per game, I think is where you go. And you're just hoping that it's relatively consistent. He's probably not going to have many, 80 plus yard games. And, the touchdowns weren't there last season. That's the concerning thing. Cause if he's going to be someone who is more than just a streaming quality tight end, I think he'll probably need to get into that 7 or 8 touchdown range. And I have very, very little reason to be excited about him. I think I'd rather take the chance on Alberto, although I would expect he'll end up going a lot higher than him as well. So, maybe it's you're taking Zach Ertz or Dawson Knox or something like that, or Cole Kmet.
You think Alberto is going ahead of Ertz, or Ertz is going ahead of?
I think Alberto is going to go way ahead. Yeah,
I don't know.
I
don't think people are going to be too excited about him. He's a 4th option for Wilson. They've really been very few good tight ends with Wilson. You're excited about him, about Alberto?
Oh, I don't know if I'm excited about him yet, but I think people will be. I think he's going to be drafted as a top 12 tight end.
Only dynasty, I think you're going to see that happen.
Okay.
I don't think any redraft leagues are.
I could see him being the 11th or 12th tight end off the board, but I think Ertz will go ahead. I think he's that tight end that the bridge. He's the bridge guy between those top 9 tight ends and then the Albert O's, the Noah Fants, the Pat Freiermuths, the Dawson Knoxes of the world. And I'll tell you what, I think Knox could jump him if it ends up being that Buffalo doesn't make any splash additions in their offense. Seems like Knox could be a guy that starts to get more targets next year.
In non-PPR, yeah, I see that. But I don't think in PPR, he's not catching as many passes as Zach Ertz.
Yeah, but he's going to score more touchdowns.
Maybe.
When you say the bridge, I mean, maybe Zach Ertz is the last tight end that you feel comfortable with as a week 1 starter, the last one drafted.
No, you'll feel comfortable starting some other guys, but those are like the streaming guys. I think you'll look at Ertz as like a little bit better than a streamer, but not quite as good of a, rock solid type of tight end.
It's also going to depend on who they bring, because if they don't bring anybody else in and it's Rondell Moore and a few other guys, he's going to be in a really good spot.
What if their run game doesn't get?
I mean, that's the thing about
that could also help Ertz.
Arizona right now just has so many questions that they still need to answer this offseason that it's kind of hard to know what it's going to look like. But
they answered one. Again, you got to look at what these teams are prioritizing.
Sorry, I was really just prolonging this conversation so I could look up how many red zone targets he had with the Cardinals. He actually had 14, which ranked 10th in that stretch, tied with Mark Andrews, tied with DK Metcalf. How about goal to go? Anybody care about this?
Although, again, no DeAndre Hopkins. You have to assume a decent chunk of those probably would have gone to DeAndre Hopkins had he played more than, 2 of the 11 games?
Oh, how about this? Goal to go. And yes, you're right, Chris. But he had the 4th most. Zach Ertz had the 4th most goal to go targets in that time period, weeks 7 through 18. That's pretty interesting. Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp. Actually, Cooper Kupp tied with Zach Ertz. It is many goal to go targets.
And he also did this on the fly. No offseason, no training camp, everything being thrown at him.
Also, that all does serve as a reminder of how gross the Cardinals' offense was for much of that stretch.
Yeah, it was a struggle. That's pretty interesting, though. So you look at the touchdowns; they were low, kind of like Mike Williams, actually, who we just talked about. Mike Williams had a ton of targets inside the 10-yard line and a very low touchdown rate. Same thing for Zach Ertz when he was with the Cardinals.
Buying on Mike Williams now.
It depends. I mean, some people love him. I think that he's gonna. Anyway, I'll get your thoughts on that. I'll get your thoughts on that on Monday. We'll recap everything. Monday's going to be an exciting day, so stay tuned. Remember, join our bracket challenge. Winner is in the podcast league.
How much does that cost, Adam? How much does that cost to join?
Free 99, as Chip Patterson would say. Our colleague. Free 99. I'm sure a lot of people say
it's nothing.
It means nothing.
Don't let the 99 throw you off.
If you want our opinion, I think Miami's going to beat USC. I think if you're looking for a 10-7 upset, I think Miami's going to beat.
An unbiased opinion, I'm going to say Hurricane 75, USC 23.
Ditka 76. We are out of here, everybody. Thanks for listening. And cbssports.com/FFT brackets. Join that right now. We will talk to you on Monday or Sunday night, who knows, with another episode of Fantasy Football Today. And I'm hitting the wrong button with another episode of Fantasy Football Today.